Welcome to that Greaves Rooney Sports Podcast. I'm Dan Greaves.
I'm Martin Rooney.
And today we have a football special. A legend of both of our clubs at Palace and at Villa, Mile Jedinak.
For a long time he was Australian captain. He's well known as a bearded warrior, we'd say. He's someone who epitomises the hard-working ethic that I think football fans love to see.
Yeah, he's almost like a Vinnie Jones-esque kind of central midfield defender, where he takes no messing from the opposition.
Did he grab anyone's balls? I don't think he's that kind of.
He's not that kind of Vinnie Jones, but he's the more harder man. He's like that, got that persona, but actually he's really soft. He's a really nice guy, and he's a family man.
He's a family man, and you can see it comes across well. I think we talked to him a lot about his training, his leadership skills, what made him the person he is today, and it was an honour to talk to the guy. I think to get an hour of his time, we could have gone for another 2 or 3 hours, Dan.
Yeah, he's such a great guy. Just a chat. His work ethic is so amazing on Saturdays, and it was nice to get the behind the scenes kind of bits that he does and how he prides himself on his professionalism and what it really takes to be a top professional footballer. But yeah, would love to have him on again because there's so much more we could chat about, and we really hope you enjoy it as much as we did making this pod.
Enjoy it, guys.
Rooney now kicks away. Commonwealth champion for discus dash. Rooney gets the goal. Medalled at the last 4 Paralympic Games. Martin Rooney ran a great race in lane 1. Great character. Well done, Dan Greaves.
Thanks so much for agreeing to come on the pod, mate.
Appreciate you're a busy man. Now you just had a fourth.
Yep, 4th child, another boy to add to the growing bunch and the growing family. But yeah, very, very, very happy. Yeah, over the moon really with the new addition. Everyone's healthy, that everyone's home, and yeah, I think he's brought a bit of calmness to the household, and with the chaos with his little brothers around him and whatnot. But yeah, it's all good.
Are they loving it?
They are. They do. They show. It's sort of special the way that at every age, from the eldest child he's 7 turning 8, and then I've got one who's turning 6, and then the second youngest now is 2. The way they show their affection towards him and towards everyone, it's like they're all different in their own way, but all equally as special.
Do you come from a big family?
I've got a brother and a sister. Not really. No, we have. I say a big family. When it's Christmas back home or a birthday or something, there is like 50 or 60 people there. But it's we've always been pretty tight, and that's just the way it is. But I've always been one to if I had the opportunity to have kids, I'd want to have 3, 4. It would be. It's a dream, really.
Yeah, I know. We're both fathers and stuff. It's such a blessing. I think it puts everything that you do in perspective. I don't know how you feel about that, but
it gives you a bit of perspective. It gives you motivation. It gives you something to channel your energy into. And kids, as much as you love them, they'll find ways to test you. I mean that in the nicest possible way. Just because they're your own kids, but they'll find ways to test you. You guys will both experience it, I'm sure, when your kids get older. But they find ways, and you always having to remind yourself at the end of the day, they're going to be a product of what you are, and how you treat them and how you want to treat them is what they're going to remember. And giving yourself a reminder of that makes you always think, well, how do I want them to, or what was I taught, or and seeing it now, and I've actually got my parents over at the moment. They've just came over, and they're in the background sort of thing, and I'm doing what I have to do with the kids, and I'm just thinking to myself, what I wonder what mum and dad are thinking here with the way I'm dealing with this and stuff like that. So
do you think you're getting critiqued, getting scores out of 10?
Yeah. I don't know if it'd be critique, but my parents are all right. If you know, if I need to be a little bit harsher or firmer with them, they don't mind that, because, you know, I was born and raised that way, and you know, it teaches you discipline a little bit, and sometimes just talking to the kids isn't enough. They don't want to, you know, they don't want to listen to you, regardless of whatever mood they're in, and listen, if they're going to critique me, they're all right. But I know that whatever I'm going to have their support, and you know, they're always going to have my support as well.
I find with my mum and dad, they're super soft. They're super strict on me and my brothers and sisters.
I don't. They're soft. My parents are like, my mother-in-law was just over, and she just lets them do whatever, and that's just the way she is, and she's pretty, you know, easygoing and whatever. But you know, my parents won't be scared to say to the kids, listen, no, don't do that. Like, you know, that's not. We don't want you to do that. We don't want you hurting each other. And it's mainly with what they do to themselves, really, and what they're doing to each other. You know, as you can imagine, three boys, two that are pretty close and as thick as thieves together. And you know, 1 minute they're best mates, the next they're the worst of enemies. And you just think like, but then in the next breath, like they'll be, you know, wanting to go and do something with each other, and you're like. That's what I remember. You know, I have an older brother, and you sort of remember that sort of love-hate relationship growing up, and you know, that's sort of part of being a kid, I guess.
What was it like growing up in Sydney?
Sydney was, you know, Sydney for us, Western Sydney, you know, where I was about, 40, 50 minutes away from city centre. We were, you know, western suburbs, and I had a good upbringing. I was fortunate enough, you know, I had both sets of grandparents, you know, a lot of cousins, and you know, just it was a lot of family time, really. When I first started to play football, you know, it was football and with families. I didn't really, you know, and then apart from going to school, that was pretty much it. And yeah, I don't remember anything other than that. And you know, those memories I've got of those times back then they're all positive.
And like, when did you first like kind of realise that you had a talent for football?
I don't know if it's when you realised, or if there was a specific moment where I said, oh, I've got a special talent. I never ever thought that. It was more of this is what I want to do. I want to try and do it to the best of my ability. When did that start? You always, you know, when you're doing anything as a kid, you always have to love what you're going to do. I mean, you got to follow that right the way through. But I think as a kid, you know, I fell in love with football because my brother was playing football, and for a couple of years, I wanted to try and play, and wanted to play with him and his team, and you know, I'd be begging basically my parents on the sideline to do so. But when I did get the opportunity, I enjoyed it. I looked forward to it, and as sort of first few years went on and got a little bit older, it was like I just really enjoyed it. I got to meet some really good friends, good mates that I'm still friends with, and just, you know, you learn a bit about life, you learn a bit about yourself, you know, with your mates, and you go through that whole process of being in a team sport and trying to develop together, and then on top of that you grow up, and it's just, you know, I never really wanted to do anything else. You know, the old one back that comes to mind was, you know, in school was, well, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you know, I was almost sometimes embarrassed to say, you know, should I say footballer, or you know, a professional soccer player, as we would say, because you know, football in Australia it's not a number one sport. It's not like what it is over here or in Europe, and you always seemed like you were fighting against it, you know, to try and get as far as you could. And I always knew, regardless of where I was going to get to, that ultimately that would mean having to move away from home at some point in time. And I was fortunate enough to be able to experience that at a young age, and it was a good experience. But again, it was a very, very difficult experience, but one that sort of put me in good stead for when I did eventually come back the second time, and been over since.
How different is the Australian setup, like you're saying then, like starting off as a youngster and going abroad? Like,
how do I describe it? How can I describe it? It just, you know, the facilities, the amount of football, the amount of teams, the level of talent, the level of coaching, it's all just, it's just all increased. And I can say that because although I grew up in a different time to my kids, but it's, I'm going through it now with my own kids, and I can see my dad's over, and my dad was a big, he played a big part in my football career with me growing up, and he's come over here, and we were only using the Aston Villa's got a new academy set up where they've got some new pitches, and we went there the other day, and he just said to me, "Wow, this is incredible." And he's watched the kids train a few times when he was here a previous time, and he's like, "Oh, that's pretty impressive." Like, the kids are getting fed after trainings and sitting down for a meal, and it's just another level.
So you talk about the difference, the leveling.
Yeah, and it's just, like I said, it's, live and breathe. And, I was obsessed. Again, that's something as a reference point. I probably will do that from now with, with my own kids. I remember myself being a kid and living in Australia and how obsessed I was with football. But, I hate to admit it, but I think my boys are even more obsessed with it. It's crazy. But then I can see why, with not only with what I do and them being able to understand that now, but, you've got it at the click of a button on YouTube with clips and even on the television over here. It's especially when it's football season. There's games on. I think it's there or thereabouts, and if it's not that, it's the results. Oh, Dad, who won this? And I just think to myself, that's an environment that if they want to try and, if I could give them an opportunity to maybe excel in that, then it's got to be over here. Yeah. It has to be over here.
Like Mike Tyson talks about his son wants to become a boxer. Yeah. And it's like, well, no, I'm not letting him become a boxer because he's going to come up against a guy like me, and he's going to get beaten up. How do you feel like about your kids coming up now?
I always say to them, if you don't want to do anything, don't do it. Don't do football. If football, I've got two very passionate kids about football, but sometimes that passion can tip them over the edge, and with their age and tiredness, and if football's going to make you upset, don't play it. Yeah. It's not about that. Yeah. But I haven't had to do it. Like, I haven't had to push them. Where it's all themselves. I see different attributes in them both. It's very similar to myself, and that's all you can do. You can only encourage. You see sort of the guidance and stuff in terms of the coaching and that they're getting, and it's like I just use it as a reference. Like, I know I wasn't, although I had a different upbringing. It's not what I had, and I know I was able to do it. So it's not, like I said, it's not the be all and end all. You're not guaranteed to get any, to become a footballer at this young age. But if the more they want to learn, the more they want to, the more they want to try and practice, and the more they look into it and listen and observe, and all I can do is encourage and try and help that. Yeah.
It's about their own investment, I suppose, at this age as well. Like, you kind of
listen. If they wanted to do something else, play tennis, play golf, I'd be all for it as well. But I'm not in that position. I'm lucky. I know football, and they want to do it, and it's like, okay, no problems. Like, let's give it a go.
You're going to get your kids into athletics, Dan?
No, mate. I'm going to put a golf club, a tennis racket, or a football in Henry's hand, and no, it's exactly like that. It's like Henry's got an arm on him. Like, we throw tennis balls and all sorts of footballs in the back garden, and he knows that Daddy goes to work to throw, and he's at obviously 2.5, so he understands now that Daddy goes to work and he does throwing, which is really, it kind of sets you back a bit, because obviously I learn all the time, and now he fully understands what I do. But kind of like, I was just given the opportunity. I played rugby, football, squash, tennis, badminton, triathlon, everything, and my parents were like, look, just go and find something that you like. It doesn't have to be one specific thing. I was good at swimming, but then tried other things. It wasn't like and my parents were quite open, and I want to be that parent as well, which is open to every opportunity 100%. Until he finds something that he really enjoys, it actually is good at as well, because he enjoys it.
I couldn't agree more with you. I mean, growing up, although I only played football for a club team and stuff growing up, mate, when we were at home, it was that, but like we had the cricket set out. My kids I got my kids a cricket set I think it was a couple of months ago, and they're out there today, and it's like the cricket's on and they're playing, they got a tennis. You try, you enjoy it, go and do it. There's no harm in, doing it. There's no harm in trying it,
Yeah, I think it's, as well, like, it would then mould you as a person to do individual, team sports, and then kind of, I think that's, I'm really pleased that, like, my...
Right, look, it also, I mean, it's, I was, one of my boys, he could kick a ball before he could walk, basically. He could hit a tennis ball with a tennis racket at the age of 1.5, and you're like, how's this even possible? Yeah. But just has that natural, he has that natural ability, and he picks up to it quick, and you're like, and he'll throw himself around to be a goalkeeper, like, and you're like, all right, go and do it.
And do you think that's like I think like genetically, because I'm coming back from farming stock, basically. My granddad and his grandfather was a farmer, so they've got that kind of farmer strength in me, and I think I thoroughly believe that genetics is why I'm strong.
Yeah. Do
you believe then that your sons have carried the gene over, like, or do you think like it may be nurture?
You have to believe that there is an element of that, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, although I don't come from, my dad, my dad's side of, they were playing rugby back in Australia, rugby league at that, and we just, I don't know, I just see them, and both the boys now that are playing, they're two completely different sorts of players. Yeah. One's a lefty, one's a righty as well. Okay. Towed on top of that, so you're like, you're sort of scratching your head a little bit, but then at the same time you're like, oh, this is intriguing. This is going to be like, this is going to be good. Like this looks pretty. This is good. Like this is going to be enjoyable then. But yeah, look, you'd like to hope that if they've got something of yours, great. Does it give them an advantage potentially? But more so for me, and you could agree or disagree, but it's more of that. You want that mindset of, okay, I've got this ability. How do I work towards, and I'm not saying that at this age, but getting to a point and recognizing it, and then being able to understand what it is, and saying, okay, I'm going to really give this a proper go.
Talking of mindset, I think why you were popular at Palace and at Villa, it was like you were someone who was always willing to give that extra bit, like 100%. It was never about like, I'm coasting through a game, I'm never here just to like get my pay packet. It was like, right, I'm giving 100% to the team. Is that something that was brought up in you as a kid, or is that just something you developed?
I don't know any different. I'm glad it's come across that way, but I was never brought up any different. I've always had to work hard for whatever I've had to do, and I want that to be a reflection of me, but of my parents, and nothing was ever given to us easily, and I want that. I'd love that to get rubbed off on my kids as well. And to be honest, you can see it you can see it a little bit in them already. So it's something that you pride yourself on. I mean, you're talking about something that I consider to be the norm, but we all know that it doesn't necessarily work out that way, and it doesn't necessarily work out that way, not all the time, but from time to time people let themselves down, and it comes across that way. I think something like that is part of understanding what you're doing, and understanding that you're not only representing yourself, first of all you're representing your badge and the team that you're playing for at that time, and you're representing a group of people, a fan base, a community, basically a bigger family, an extension of your family, to try and try and achieve something really, really special. And I was fortunate enough with my 2 stints at the clubs you mentioned that I was able to do that in different ways as well.
As a leader then on the pitch, how was it? How did you encourage people to raise their game to your level? How did you get guys, if they were dragging their feet a bit, like, was it a struggle or was it just?
It's not a. It's. I think that the time when you think when it's a struggle is. It's that little bit of mentality you have to try and instill in people, and if you have enough people around you that have similar or part of that mentality of you don't want to let anyone down, you want to work, it makes it all that easier because the person who lets you down is the odd one out. So I think particularly at Palace, that season when we went up and subsequently staying in the Premier League, and that by the time we got to the Premier League, it was already instilled in us, from that, and it was a credit to everybody there. The boys, the camaraderie, the togetherness, and that carried the team pretty much for a very, very long time. And it was instilled in us, and I was happy to be a part of that. Happy to be one of the guys who helped implement that for a very long time, and it's nice to know that. I speak to boys and see boys that I played with there and who aren't there at the club, or some who are, and you always remind yourself back to that, or whenever you are having a proper conversation, you end up bringing yourself back to the times when it wasn't necessarily the stuff on the pitch that you remember. It's more the stuff of remember when we had to do this and remember we had to do this away from the pitch, that sort of, not everyone would know, but it helped sort of galvanise you as a group. But, being in that moment, you just thought, for me at the time, it was like, this is what we need to do. This is second nature. And then moving on to Villa, it was, completely different environment, completely different setup, completely different. It was like chalk and cheese, and it was then trying to break it down and trying to build it basically back up to try and get to that point. And we had it in the second season. We probably had it. It was okay. And then, last year we had it as well. And obviously we got the rewards of it, and the boys pulled together and, got the job done, which was good.
Is it something that you brought into training? Because I've heard El Ghazi said it one of the days when we were all here. He was like, he was in the opposite team, so he knew he was going to lose in training. Is that something that you just bring to the training pitch?
It's my day to day basically. It's what I do. It's it's getting there early, doing your gym work, and people don't understand. Some of my teammates didn't understand that. What are you doing here so early? I mean, you prepare. You're preparing an hour and a half beforehand to get out on the pitch for 10:30. I wasn't fortunate enough to just come out and do a few stretches or do a few bit of glute bands and then go out. I wasn't able to do that. I haven't been able to do that in a long time, but I don't want to do that. I think it's the right way, and it's just that. And then when you do go into train, you're on. You're ready to go, and you're as a player or as a member of a team. Your responsibility that day is to give you 100% in training, because that's what's going to make you better and good for it on the Saturday. There's an age-old saying that I grew up with. The Saturday should be the easy part.
Yeah.
The game should be the easy part, and you get your work and it's just by that and sort of pushing the boys along, helping to push the boys along, being another voice for the boys, and holding them to standard almost to a point where you're like, come on boys, like we need to do better here, and not being able to putting yourself out there and saying, listen, come on, we need more.
Has there ever been obviously you've been under quite a few managers, has there ever been managers that have maybe not deterred you from that mindset of maybe gone, look, we need to kind of make sure we're not all getting injured because we're all ploughing into each other in training? Does that kind of mindset?
by that is not just like it's not ploughing in. It's not necessarily even tackling at training. It's more of a right. We got to do a drill. We got to sprint for 20 meters or we got to do a pressing drill where we're back and forth. We're going to do it for 30 seconds and then we're going to rest. We're not going to do it for 20 and then take it easy and do it half measured for 10 seconds. We're going to go for 30 seconds. It's more of that, like just when we're doing drills, because you do. I mean, in training, that's what you're there for. You get your rest times. You know, not everything's always. It is on the clock, but you're not going for an hour and a half straight, or 60 minutes straight, or 70 minutes straight. You're getting your rest time, but you're expected when you are working. You're going to work, and it only works, and you can only improve as a group if everybody's thinking that same way. You know, your standard of passing gets better, your standard of movement gets better when boys are sharper flying in, and, you know, your touch gets better when boys are zipping balls in, and, you know, the proof's there. It's not, you know, it wasn't...
Not rocket science.
It's not rocket science, and it's not, you know, I get it. Some, you know, you do. Some boys and some players tend to want to go through it easy, and not everyone's the best trainer. Not everyone wants to train as hard as others. That's okay. That's not a problem, but there's a minimum standard, you know. There has to be a minimum standard, and everyone has to try and adhere to that as best as they can.
Do you get like some players who come in a bit flash, and then they don't bring in like the level of like intensity? Is it like do you have to humble them or anything?
I sort of don't. I've never really had to do that, to be honest with you. It wouldn't never be something that. Where I'd have to, you know, it'd be more through my own actions that I'd get people to try and, you know, respond in a positive way or lift their standard up, or, you know, if I can, you know, always, particularly the last couple of years or even the last season, just say, for example, you know, I'll give you a time when Dean Smith came in. When he came in and we were working really hard. I'd just come back from an injury, and I think it was the boys who hadn't played on the weekend. We were in on I think it was a Sunday session, and we were doing a small-sided game. I think it was a 4v4, but it was intense. Like, you had to press, and I was charging up and down, and I'm like, well, we're only working for 2 minutes. Like, we need to do, you know, we're not going to get anything out of it. I go, if I can do it at, you know, 34, there's no reason why you boys can't do it. You know, you can't say that you're tired. You know, I'm just as tired, but you know, it's 2 minutes work. Yeah. Game is 90 minutes. Like, we're only working for 2 minutes and then we're having a rest. This is the way we're going to improve. And so, you know, when you remind yourself about things like that, and when players sort of can see that visually, they can see that some need to be told, some don't need to be told, but then they can see for themselves. Yeah. You know, and they pick it up, which is ideally what you'd like. But if you need to give someone a little bit of a nudge sometimes, then you have to do that as well.
Wakes them up.
Well, ultimately, it's, you know, you got to rely on that guy at some stage, and, you know, like it or not, you've got to try and make it work. And I think that's the perception sometimes, where people think, oh yeah, but he's on, you know, he should be doing it, but he's not. So how are we going to get the best out of him? You know I have to worry about myself, but there's someone here who needs a bit of encouragement or needs to kick up the backside. We need to give it to him.
Yeah, I struggle with that. Like, because obviously athletics is primarily an individual sport, and then I have to come together as part of a team. And it's kind of like, how am I going to get this guy to commit to this relay when it should be really simple? It's like, we're at World Champs or Olympics. Like, come on, mate. This is the big.
It's a given, yeah. You got the flag on your chest, like.
It's the big one, yeah. Like you said, the motivation shouldn't be there, and that's something that I think, I don't know, you either understand or you understand at certain times in your career, maybe as you get older, some would say, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that. But it's just understanding people and understanding how to get through to them at certain moments. And, you know, in the heat of the moment in a game, sometimes you don't have the time to think about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it to people. On the training pitch, you probably do. Yeah. You know, and that's where you sort of build your relationships. And you build that sort of work ethic and work dynamic where, this. So then people know, not through fear, but through their own thing. Oh, actually, no, I felt good about this. I'm gonna, I should do this. This should be. And then hopefully you're raising the standard to, this should be the norm now. And then when someone new comes in and they're below that, how do we get them up? Oh, we've already done it. We were the ones down. Now we can help the people get up. So.
Bring them through.
That's really interesting. And then, how much do you utilise Villa's kind of medical staff and stuff, or have you got a completely separate setup to?
Oh, listen,
because you're in great shape and you obviously work hard.
I do.
34.
You're obviously 35 now.
35, yeah.
Birthday.
Yeah, for birthday.
The other day, yeah. I think, understanding your body to a point where you know what you need. You guys know I see Derry and Pora. They've looked after me for the last almost 3 years since I moved up to Villa, and if I use the medical staff at the club, of course, if you need to, day to day. But I was finding myself, particularly the last season, not really, I didn't really have to do, apart from the odd, the 1 week once a week maintenance. It was, whether that was maybe less game time or not, but I always felt ready. Always felt fit. Always felt ready to go, regardless of when that was. And I have to say, I have to give that, I have to give a lot of credit to, the way that the training was, and the way that the training was designed, and everyone sort of for buying into it and making sure that we were getting what we needed out of it. If you needed top ups and stuff, that was a given, and that was fine. But the intensity in training, I must say, was, for me, it was a big satisfaction to me.
You said you always came into training early, did more of a warm up. Is there anything else that you do away from the football training? Is it general body conditioning stuff that you've done?
In season, it's probably not. Of late though, because obviously not attached to any club, I've just I made a sort of conscious decision to do a lot of core based stuff, Pilates and different variations of that. I've done a few bar classes. I don't know if you guys know what bar classes are, but they're basically, it's a ballet bar, and you're doing a sort of an hour course on that. It's a total body workout.
Foot, ankle stuff like that.
Yeah, it's foot, ankle, but it's everything. You're doing lunges, you're doing shoulder work, it's a complete, and you it's an hour and you 600 calories you burn, mate.
That's a whole different.
It's a completely different workout. I did it the first time about 4 or 5 weeks ago, maybe a bit more, and I was sore for 3 days. So now I'm used to it. It's
always those minor muscles.
But and that's the thing. It's if you can, those things are, when you're trying new things. Obviously, it's best done in the off season and stuff, so you don't get the DOMs and that going into work when you have to. But being able to do that and sort of even just the core work and the Pilates yoga stuff, it just reminds you how much you need it. And I've sort of I'm like, I have to stick to this now, regardless of what happens, I'll have to, because I feel great. You feel great. You feel like when you go there and do your work outside, you're running and your technical ball work and stuff, you feel like you can do it and you've got the capacity to do it. And I don't know what it is. It feels.
Is it because it's fresh?
I don't know if it's because it's fresh, but I don't feel like I look forward to going in and doing it. But I know then, like I said, my routine has been doing that sort of stuff in the mornings, and then I'll go and do my physical stuff in the afternoon, whether it be a bike or a run or some ball work or some gym work. So yeah, it's I don't know. I've managed to sort of stay on top of it and enjoy that. When you're in season, I think it's just knowing, you understand your body. What do you need? Do you need a little bit of extra treatment? Sometimes if the games are stacking up, do you need that little bit of extra treatment and rest, or swim or pool, or do you need that sort of stuff more than actually getting out there and doing the physical? Is it a bit more stretching that you need, a bit more flexibility or mobility stuff? And I think when you get to a point where you understand your body enough, you sort of, that sort of comes and you're like, okay. Because you guys you guys can say it doesn't get any easier when you get younger. Oh, when you get older, sorry, it doesn't get any easier. You know, it doesn't get any easier when you get older, but you've got to be mindful of what you do as well, without you don't want to overstep the mark, and that's what sort of this period for me has been. It's, am I doing enough? Am I not? But that's why I've sort of, with this regime that I got at the moment, it's like I feel like I'm good. I'm feeling good.
I've always wondered, like, how do you divide your time up? You know, like, what does a typical day as a footballer look like?
So a regular day, I can give you the example of last season. What would it be? So for example, I don't know, if we go in on it was always a 10:30 start. So I'd leave the house at 8, 8:15, get in for 8:30, 9, just say. Do your bits like straight away, just get changed, and I'd go into the gym and bike, slight stretch, and then do your activation stuff. Get strapped before you'd have to go out at 10:30, and then it'd be train, do whatever you had to do. If you had extras, you did extras outside, and then you'd come in, have a bit of lunch, maybe have a coffee and a chat with a few of the boys, and then afternoon would be a gym session, depending on what day of the week. If it was a Monday, it'd probably be an upper body core. Tuesday, because you'd have a Wednesday off potentially, it'd be a lower body. You do your legs, and then also you'd be seeing, like, I'd be seeing Pora and Derry anyway. Okay. So it'd be
That's a session in itself.
So I'd be able to hammer it because of that reason. Yeah. And you're like, I'll get sorted out tomorrow, so all good. And that's it. Like, you come home. I was getting home, I think, most days 3:30, 4 o'clock, either after the school run or just before the school run, depending on the day. And then you're at home for a little bit, and by that time your kids are sort of asking, "Oh, Dad, can you come out?" And it was like, oh, no, Dad's tired, like he's got to rest for tomorrow and stuff. And whereas now it's like, yeah, I'll come and have a little kick. Actually, when I have been going, I've been taking the boys with me, and they've been having a little run around, which has been good. They've been helping me out too, which is good. So
that's a whole different dynamic, bringing your kids to training and having fun, and they're learning as they're going.
Yeah, it was good. It's been different. Well, I've done a few sessions with them now, and I'll let them have their little bit, and then I'm like, "Oh, can you help Dad do something?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then the other day was, "Oh, do you want to do some running with Dad?" And they were like, "Yeah." The little one was like tired. He was flagging, and my eldest was like, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it with your Dad." And he stuck with me, so it was good. It was good. It's nice to see. And then I had my dad. He was walking around the training complex doing big laps, and I was like, "Oh, look at this! 3 generations of us on this pitch and on these. It's incredible."
It sounds like you like the pain of training. You enjoy the hard bits.
I enjoy the hard bits. Yeah, and I enjoy the hard bits because I know that's what makes it worthwhile to me, when you have to suffer a little bit in order to get what you want.
You ever try 400?
No, nowhere near as quick as you, and I don't think I'd ever run, or I ever have run as quick as you, mate, because
well, the training's the same. It's just about hurting yourself and how much you're willing to go into that.
The black void of.
You ever have things like you talk to, so you're in a deep set, so you're in your bar work session. Is there something that makes you go, right?
Because that side of it's all new to me. Like, if I need to have a break there, I'll have to have a couple of seconds because I'm cramping in my glute or something like that. It's like that's it at the end of the day, and I'm like, I've got to respect that. Yeah. But I think with when you're working like that, especially in a pre-season sort of type mentality, and it's like, it can't break you. You don't let it break you. Don't let it break you. It can hurt, it'll hurt, but don't let it break you. And just remember that when you get over the line, you've got it in the tank. It's your energy then. Use it as your fuel for next time. And I've done a big weight session on Thursday, I think it was, at Villa, and I then said to the coach who was working with me, he fancied doing a bit in the barn with me, and we'd done some runs and some ball work for a good half an hour, and I was like, and then I knew as well. I'm like, oh, I've got a bar session tomorrow morning, but I'm like, this is good though, because I feel like this was really, really good. And then I finished the bar session and I came home and I was like, oh, I'm shattered, man. I'm shattered. But then, to be fair, like, I still got up the next day and I went for it with the boys and we done a session, and you know, you're getting that, you're like, it's almost of that, I've got to do something. I don't want to let myself down. Like, I don't want to get into that, I could go or I couldn't go.
Yeah.
I have to go.
Yeah.
No, I have to go. You know.
Do you find if you break a routine as well, like, it's the hardest thing to get back into?
It's not that hard for me to get back into it. I'll just pick up. I can pick it up quite quickly. It's not a problem. It's more of it's just being in that mindset and trying to stay in that mindset the best you can. You know, you don't want to lose that little bit of that edge of, I've got to go and work. Whatever it is, if I'm not feeling running today, I've got to go on a bike then. I have to go on a bike, or I have to go on a roller, or I have to go for a swim or something like that.
You know, with your mindset, like, in the back of our minds are always our competitors, like, around the world, thinking, what are they doing? You get on a day-to-day basis to see your competitors live for your position. And does that affect your, like, mindset and training? And, you know, like, if someone's having a really good game, you're thinking, does that change your mindset of how you think differently about what you do?
I think you compete with yourself, really. I think that's the biggest thing I can say. I think you guys obviously been in an individual, more so in an individual environment. You see, you tend to probably look at competitors a bit more, whereas being in a team environment, you know, you got other guys in the team pushing you, and you're there to push other people. You know, the last thing that anyone wants in a squad environment is people to get complacent, and there to be no competition. You know, it brings you back to that, why are we actually there? You know, you can't win anything with 11 players. It's the whole squad that creates that environment, creates that standard for everybody to try and push themselves. And it's always been about that. Maybe when you get to funny, like it always seems to be within the team that you're in, is that who you're potentially competing with. Without, you know, it's probably somewhere in the back of your mind. It's not the thing that's driving you forward, because you only want to better yourself, but it is like somewhere there in the back of your mind saying, maybe if he plays well, he might get another game, or he'll continue his run, or if I don't play well, then maybe someone might step in.
I suppose that's part of being a training group. We have like squads where we're pushing each other. To be honest, I've never really trained with 400 metre runners who are British. I've trained with guys from other countries and stuff, so I've never had that kind of like, if you beat me in a race, I'm just going to fucking kill me. But I've only had it with other athletes in different events.
Yeah, and I guess, I don't know. It's actually an interesting question, because I've never even really thought about it. Like, it was more of a focus on me. Whatever I could control, I could control. If I can't control something, or if someone, I'm going to be there to shake his hand and say, well done. Yeah. You know, it's never about. And this brings back to you, as much as you want yourself to flourish and your career to flourish, and to ultimately, you're not there just for yourself. You're there as a teammate, someone to help, and someone to be there for whatever happens, whatever part you have to play, and whether that be starting, coming on for 2 minutes, coming on to take a penalty, coming on to, coming on at the first minute. You've got to have the same focus the whole way through, because you see it, and I've probably experienced it as well with certain players that you played with, the wrong mentality at a certain point in time, and it costs you the game. Yeah, you know.
That was just epic.
Yeah, I want to talk about now.
That coming on against West Brom, and like stepping up, first touch, take the penalty. And there is a stat I read on Twitter, everyone was absolutely loving it, because apparently Mile Jedinak has never missed a penalty. 17-0. I don't know whether you've kept track or.
I know that I've not missed, so.
That is steely, balls and steely.
Is it just big cojones? Is that?
Yeah. What did you say to him? Say, look.
People will say to me, probably, but I don't know. I do. You do take pride in it. Obviously, you have to, and you're there. It's a responsibility. We had practiced them for a very, very long time in the build up to the playoffs. Not even just for the playoffs. We had practiced them in the build up, and I sort of had a feeling as soon as it went to when it was the clock was counting down that I was going to come on. I asked Lovre, the goalie who was next to me. I said, I'm coming on, eh? And he's like, yeah, you're going on. Because obviously the goalkeeper coach has a big influence in what happened, like in those proceedings and stuff. And he would have studied all the boys taking the penalties and stuff like that. And so I just, go and get warm. No problems. I mean, it's a position that I've never been in before. And would I want to be in again? I wouldn't mind. But it's not as easy as it looks because you sat there for 120 minutes, basically. You go up for a few runs and whatever just to keep yourself going. But you got to just remind yourself of, what you do normally, what's your routine. Just say if you had played 120 or if it was the 5th minute, just go in those actions. And I think the bonus is the fact that you're fresh is like, well, your mind is not tired. Yeah. So, there's no excuse not to score, really. There's no excuse not to hit the ball well. There's no excuse not to concentrate on what you're going to be doing. So...
I must say I jumped up and down massively.
I was happy on the inside, even though I might not have showed it. It was just there.
It was the stare.
It was a like I said, it was a penalty shootout. Was good. It was great to win it, and like I said, it all made it worthwhile afterwards because the game after was the big one, which the boys got done.
Scoring at a World Cup, is that different? Is that a different feeling?
It's hard to describe, really. It's pretty special. I don't know. I just think my first goal at a World Cup was 2014, and we got a penalty. Not how we got a penalty, but Australia got a penalty, like against the Netherlands. Like, you never get those decisions. Like, those decisions just don't happen.
Is that the same? Like, I knew we hear about it in the Premier League and stuff. Like, small clubs don't get the same as.
It's not that. It's just whether or not they're going to be brave enough to give it. And I mean, if it's obvious, I mean that was sort of obvious anyway. But he could have just as well just waved it away or whatever. But the fact that we did get it, it was like, oh, great. But it's more of the atmosphere. World Cup. There's this atmosphere around the place, and everyone's happy, and you see two sets of colours in the stands, and being able to do it there in front of my family and stuff was pretty special. And then in Brazil in Russia that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. I was lucky to have a lot of my family there, and I don't know, I knew that my kids would like it, and I knew that it'd be something to for them to sort of cheer about and remember and give them, look back on one day and said, look, Dad, I remember when you did this, and that to me was special for them, and something that I'm not going to forget in a hurry, because being an Australian playing in a World Cup, there's not a lot of us that have done it, and it's not a given for us, and to score 3 goals at a World Cup, it's not it's pretty special.
Obviously, as an English person, it's kind of like World Cup's kind of a normal thing, but in Australia, where you're not prolific in the qualifying and stuff,
because we qualified for 4 in a row now, but before that it was 32 years, and so I was lucky that I've been in a generation where we were able to do that, but it's not going to get any. That's not going to be a given all the time. It's going to. Even last time was pretty tough. So it's one of those where you remember, you embrace the experience, and because they are, like, every one of the World Cups I went to was an experience. I was at a different phase in my life, different phase in my career, and just going through the whole roller coaster of it, it was, it's something you'd never forget, and something that you wouldn't change for anything. But now that sort of I've finished that sort of chapter, it's remembering it, and you're like, oh, this is pretty, it was pretty cool. was a pretty cool ride.
Have you seen the ramifications of the success you've had over the last, say, 4 World Cups back home and the amount of football now played? I know, obviously, Australian football.
It's in a bit of a tricky spot, to be honest with you. The league has developed. I think it's been a bit steady at the moment. It hasn't really gone up or hit the heights or what they would have wanted. But in saying that, there's still players that are trying to get overseas. There's still players who are moving on from Australia, which, like it or not, that's just the way it works. I know that they're trying to introduce second league, which will help, no doubt. But yeah, there's only a certain amount of players you can pick, you choose, and with salary caps and stuff like that, it's always a bit tricky. But yeah, it's a place where a lot of players who are from there should enjoy to play, because you're at home, and playing back home is, you need to be able to play back home if you have any thought of trying to play over here. If you're not going to flourish over there, then moving abroad will be difficult. Not may be difficult, will be difficult.
It's taking the opportunities that you've got. If it means that you play in Aussie leagues for a couple of years, but you get scouted.
It's just taking the opportunities and just being the best in that environment. If you can be the best in that environment, don't get ahead of yourself. Like, you're not guaranteed to get anything or not guaranteed to move overseas, but your chances are increased. That's how I lived through it. And if it wasn't for those performances, then you wouldn't have got an opportunity. So it was that, a little bit of luck, people looking at the right time or whatever, and yeah, it gets going from there. But it's not easy. Will it ever improve to the heights of what everyone back home or the football community wants it to be? Only time will tell. But it's still got a long way to go.
How brave was it being brave when you moved to Turkey, or was it just like, right, I'm just going to go do it? So what clubs you played? I
played for Antalyaspor on loan, but I signed for Gençlerbirliği. They just went up to the first league now. Again, they had been relegated the first time in a long time, and then they're based in Ankara. And I wasn't brave, because I wanted to go back overseas anyway. I was at that point and I'd just sort of broken into the national team at that time, and there was a World Cup in 18 months' time. And I remember speaking to the then national team coach at the time and asked him, I said, what do you think? This is my thought process, this is what I'm thinking. And he's like, yeah, you got to go for it. He wasn't the biggest fan of the domestic league. Okay. He made that public, and I said, I'll go then, no problem. And I didn't really look back. I was lucky enough to have a couple of mates there they are my mates now, but 2 Australian boys that were there at the time when I first moved there, and even though they were younger than me, they sort of gave me the bit of the ins and outs. And I went into a mini pre-season, a winter pre-season, and hit the ground running and never really looked back. Accepted the culture, embraced the culture. Didn't necessarily always understand it, but respected it and got on with it. And I think, that's how I earned the respect of everyone else. So I let my sort of feet do the talking on the pitch, and my own sort of personality came out on the field and in the training ground. And I was able to really, really enjoy that 2.5 years there. So.
It's kind of a weird one, like when you see not many British players will leave Britain. And do they, you don't have to answer, but do they not embrace the culture enough, do you think? Or is it?
I don't know if it's they don't embrace the culture. I don't think that it's that at all. I think maybe the mentality has shifted since I first came over, which is 8 years ago, almost 8 years ago. Or it is 8 years ago, sorry. And then I think the mentality has shifted slightly towards players willing to try their arm a little bit more. Yeah. But if you can make it here, then why would you need to go anywhere? That's the thing. That's the thing that you don't understand until you sort of maybe come to a place like this. Like, I didn't understand it, and I couldn't really fathom, why don't you go? They don't need to, because they have everything here. But then you also get drawn into the fact of you have so much here, but then you don't utilise it enough. And that's where you get the whole perception of the mentality. He's not like some of the boys' mentality's terrible, and you know they might have done something in their careers, but then did they reach their full potential? Were they motivated enough? What was motivating them?
Out of all like the players you've ever played against, who's like your favourite?
I remember, so not necessarily when I had played, but I wasn't starting. I remember one game that sticks out. It wasn't here though, it was for the national team, and we played Germany at the World Cup first game in 2010, and we lost 4-0. And I came on for the last half an hour. We were 10 men, and I'd probably touched the ball twice, whatever. But I remember watching, and it might be Ozil at the time, and our boys just couldn't get near him.
Yeah.
Like, we couldn't even get near him to kick him.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, and I don't think he had moved to Madrid at that time. Wow, this guy's good. Like, I've played against him obviously a few times, but then playing against someone in a different environment, you know, someone like Hazard, pretty special. David Silva, I mean, incredible football intelligence. Just, yeah, it was. We had a game at Palace one time, the first time we played him over there, and we lost 1-0. And he was getting into good positions, and then the manager at the time told Joel Ward to go and stand on him, so he just ran Wardy away.
Okay, yeah.
And we ended up.
Space.
They ended up creating space. Or they didn't really open us up, but he was away from the thing, and they ended up scoring a 1-0 win. And I mean, we did really well, but he was just like getting into positions, and you're like, wow, this guy's pretty cool.
Are you someone who swaps shirts?
Not in the Premier League. I didn't really. Not even in. You know what I tend to do? I tend to get the shirts of my mates from the national team.
Okay.
That's what I used to do. I used to always get theirs. The World Cup, I got asked to swap a couple of times by players. I gave my shirt to players. So, yeah, it's nice for that memento as well to get that. I've got a couple of collections. I got a Sergio Ramos one from 2014, which is nice to have. The kids sort of pull it out every now and then, and
That's quite running around the garden with it.
they will. I'm sure they will. They're all away at the moment. They're all tucked away somewhere. But yeah, I haven't been one to sort of run around, and as you hear the stories of players asking players before games and stuff like that, that's just half time. And
I was fortunate enough to get introduced to the crowd. I think it was like after 2016, after Rio, and at half time, I was waiting just by the tunnel, and I think it was Villa Man City, and they're all swapping their shirts at half time, and I was like, what? This is like, what's going on? And so like Sergio Aguero took his top off, and I think I've forgotten who he gave it to, and I was thinking, shouldn't you like?
You not need that
after that. Oh yeah, that's obviously got a fresh top in there. But I was thinking that mentality, swapping his shirts with like your rival, was like, you should just.
I think if it's one of them, if you're asked to do it, you probably do it. If you're asking someone to do it, I think it's the wrong thing.
Yeah, I can't imagine half time. Like if
I was gobsmacked.
If you're getting smacked as well, if you're not winning the game.
I think it was the game. I think we ended up losing 3-1, but they just scored before half time.
It's not for me. It's not really for me. I mean, what you decide to do, if you are going to ask someone at half time, make sure no one sees.
well hidden behind
Yeah.
Make sure no one sees, or it's done through someone else. Don't ask yourself, especially if it's going to be in front of your own teammates. But I don't know. That's maybe the modern day now. I don't know. It might be something that's accepted. I guess. Maybe
I was just really shocked by it because I was just waiting down there, and the guy was like, "Okay, like put your phone away, like you're not allowed to take pictures."
Maybe it's accepted nowadays. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
to me, like it just doesn't make sense. Like I'm still trying to beat you.
You still got like 45 minutes to go.
I know. Well, we can have a chat after the game, and we can maybe swap shirts after the game, or shake your hand after the game. But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I've never been a massive fan of it.
I guess like to wrap up, we're trying to ask guests at the end of each pod to kind of, if you've got a motivational quote or you've got some mantra or something that you'd ask your younger self,
Tell
your younger self, almost like a bit of advice to pass on. What would you say?
Probably just be patient, because everything's going to happen for a reason, and everything does happen for a reason. You know, if I was, or that alongside, don't be so hard on yourself. And you only realise this afterwards, is you can be hard on yourself, but don't allow it to influence other people, because they can take it in a negative way, and it may come to your detriment then later on. And yeah, I have to learn that I had to learn that the hard way, but nothing drastic or anything. But it's more of a, I'm talking about, having a go at yourself, or misplacing a pass, but getting really upset with yourself, and we're to the point of, you're like, oh, this is going to affect other people now too, because they're going to be like, well, what's this guy going on about? I don't want to make a bad pass now. So probably that, I'd say. Patience, and don't be not too critical, because you need that little bit but don't be too hard on yourself.
It's a solid sound advice.
Yeah, it's very hard as a young person to be patient, isn't it?
Yeah. You want
everything now.
Was it? Yeah.
It's probably not everything at now, but it's more of a, when is the opportunity going to come, or is there going to be an opportunity that presents itself, particularly in my football career? Is there going to be something that's going to be like, where I'm going to be like, is this really happening? And in the end, some would say it did happen. Well, I'd argue it was more of a sort of steadier way of doing it. It wasn't it was more of a, don't get like, and then again, like, it's like, don't get too carried away with whatever happens.
Yeah.
Don't get too carried away with, don't get too high and don't get too low. So I'd like to think that the way I had progressed, and the way I did get my opportunities, it was more of that steady thing, rather than, some would argue, it was a rapid. It's never rapid, because no one knows what was happening beforehand.
Yeah.
No one knows what I was doing beforehand. Some would argue that they do, but they don't really. So.
Thanks so much for your time. I learned so much.
I'll probably spend another couple of hours talking about it, and we'll have to do it again.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think what's come across massively is your self-driven ability to get yourself to the levels you want to be at. And that's something I think people might not understand. They think everyone's just, if they do professional sport, they're super talented, and they're like, it's just a natural gift. It's like, well, actually, you have to work fucking hard to get there.
Yeah, talent's 10%, 5% maybe, 10, some maybe more, but it's only probably 10% of it. I'd probably, if you're going to give a percentage on it, 10%, and then the rest is hard work and blood, sweat and tears and determination and all the rest of it. Luck plays a factor.
Yeah.
There's everything, it's probably stuff you guys have all heard, but yeah, it's no different for me and my journey, that's for sure.
Wow. Thank you very much, Mile, for your time. That was brilliant. I think myself and Dan, we could have been there for another couple of hours. We've got some beers out, maybe we could do it again. Good luck with your search for the club. I think you're still a model professional, someone that young athletes, young footballers could look up to. I'd have you back at Palace any day of the week. I'm sure Dan would have you back at Villa. So thank you very much again for your time. If you enjoyed the pod, let us know. Just tell us. That's quite nice. Good for our egos. But if you could give us some feedback, if you could share the pod, if you like, subscribe. And if you want to follow us on Instagram or Twitter, it's at DiscusDan and at Martin Rooney. So stay tuned. There'll be another pod out soon.